All right, I don't want to waste your time. You know what you came here for. You're a beginner, want to learn more about GUI. This is the first episode of a potential series. I don't know. Nobody cares about series. I know. People just want the information. So yeah. So the way you make GUI, which I assume you know, but for those who don't, you go to Starter GUI, you go to Plus, you create a screen GUI, which from now on is going to be the container that's going to hold all of our other GUI stuff. And so yeah, so inside the screen GUI, you can put all of this GUI. So you have a frame, you have a button with text. You have just a text, no button. You can put a local script to actually script your GUI. You can have an image, just an image. You can have an image button, and you can have a text box where you're able to type stuff. And this isn't the only thing, by the way. So you can have more. So you can have a surface GUI, a scrolling frame, canvas group, billboard GUI, all of these different stuff. Video frame, viewport frame. There's a lot. So I'll cover more of the advanced ones in future episodes. But for now, let's just make a simple GUI, right? So I'm going to add a frame. This is our frame. And if I click on it, I'm able to drag it around like so. And the beauty of Roblox is that it kind of like lets us snap stuff, right? So like I'm able to fully position it on the center of the screen, which is very nice. And then I'm able to kind of drag it like this so we can make a big one. Awesome. There we go. The one thing you need to know about like GUI though is that about the size is that initially the size consists of four values: the X scale and offset and the Y scale and offset. As you can see, the scale is 0. What scale does is it scales it to the screen, but offset just uses the amount of pixels on your screen, right? And the issue with doing that is that this GUI is going to look different on different like screen sizes. And what I mean by this, if let's say we have a screen size like this, right? But then if someone was playing on a smaller screen like this is what it would look like. As you can see, this frame isn't moving with the screen. It's just kind of there by itself. So how do we make GUI like move along with the screen? We do that by using scale. So what I'll do is I'm going to remove the offset, right? So we don't want to be using offset. We want to use scale. So scale can go from 0 to 1. And it basically says like, how much of the screen am I covering? So on the X, if I wanted to cover just the entire X axis, I can do 1. But then for Y, if I only wanted to cover like 0.2 like or like 20% of the screen, I would say 0.2. And so if I put the screen over here, it covers the entire screen, right? On the X axis. But on the Y axis, it's only 0.2. And this is shown by if I drag it, as you can see, it gets thinner and thinner, right? Because it's only covering 20% of the Y axis. But then, and then if I do something like 0.5, so it only now covers 50% of the X axis, we can also see that like this. So as you can see, it scales, right? Meaning that this GUI will now look the same on every screen size, which is very nice. And then now, because we're using scale and not offset, when we're like, when we click, if I click on this frame and I like, scale it like this, then it will use scale and not offset, right? So let me see. Yeah, so right now it's using scale, not offset. So that's pretty helpful. So yeah, there we go. Now we have our nice little frame in place. And then let's say I want to customize the frame a little bit, right? I want to add a corner. So I want, instead of these like, sharp corners, I want these like nice round corners. I want it to have like a border, right? And then I want to add a color to it, or even a gradient. So I want to make this into a gradient, right? So, okay, we want to add, rounded corners. We want to add a border, and then we want to add a gradient. The way we do this is inside the frame, we can add a couple items. So if we want, a corner thing, we can say corner, and it gives us a UI corner. And if I click on that, as you can see, our corners are now rounded. And then I can actually modify this corner. So this corner is also using offset, which we don't want. Let's use scale. So scale something like 0.1. Yeah, there we go. That's nice. That's literally it. So 0.1. There we go. Amazing. Then I want to add an actual border. So I'll do, I think it's like UI stroke. It's called a stroke here. Yeah. So UI stroke. And then if I do like this, yeah, I can change the thickness and everything. I can change the color of it. So I can set it to be like this, or like, just very, very dark in general. And then you can also have a different mode. So you can have a round, you can have it like this, so it fills up the corner, or you can have bevel, where it kind of like chops off the corners a little bit. I like round myself though. And apply stroke basically means like this will apply to the border as it does now, But contextual, let's say if there was like text in the frame. So if we were using a text label, for example, and we were to add a stroke inside the text label, then contextual would add the stroke onto the text and not the actual border, right? Because let me show you, right? If I had a text label over here, this is our text label right now, right? If I were to copy the stroke and add it to the text label, as you can see, it's not applying to the border, it's applying to the text. But then if I make it border, then it's going to apply to the border, right? So that's kind of what it means. So yeah, so we have our stroke. And now the last thing I want to do is add a gradient. So I'll say UI gradients. And this gives us a color value. But then if I click over here and I click these three dots, I'm able to set this color and this color. And they will like kind of mash together to create a gradient. So there we go. I'm going to change this color. I'm going to set it to be this nice, like, I like this. Yeah, I like this, like, nice bluish cyan color. And then this color, I'm going to set to be, yeah, something like that. A nice darker bluish. There we go. So we've just created a nice gradient, right? And you can change the rotation of the gradient, like so. And then in a future episode, I'll actually show you how you can like animate this. So like if you want, like, let's say a frame that like has a gradient like rotate constantly, I'll show you how to do that, right? You can change the transparency, which it's this weird value where like if we set it to the middle, it makes it more transparent in the middle, or like over here, or like over here, like that, you know. I actually quite like this, like, you know, making your GUI semi-transparent, like in the middle, right? Something like that. Yeah, there we go. With a nice little transparent thing. If you want the UI stroke to have this, by the way, you have to make the color fully white. Because the gradient only shows up when it's white, right? So if the frame right now, the background color is white, but if I were to make it more darker, as you can see, it darkens the gradient as well. If I were to make this more red, it applies like a filter on the gradient, kind of like that. See, so if you just want the gradient, actually, I mean, some of these actually do look quite nice, but you know what I mean. Like if you just want the gradient, then set it to just be completely white, right? Like so. There we go. But and then if I want to apply that to a stroke, I'll just copy this gradients and then I'll paste it inside of here. And the way you paste into something, by the way, is you might be doing like you know, Control and V. However, in Roblox, doing Control and V simply puts it in the workspace. If you want to paste inside something, you hold Shift and then Control and then V. There, yeah. So you just hold Shift as well. And then if you're on Mac, you do Shift, Command, and V, right? And then, you know, we can't really see the stroke because they're all the same color. So I'll just make it. Actually, no. You know what? Instead of making the stroke darker, I'll make the frame darker. Ooh, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that actually does look very nice. It's always a good habit to keep like track of your GUI by naming it, because at some point you're gonna have so much GUI in your game, and like if you have like 50 frames and you don't know what they do, you know, that's not the best thing. So I'll just name this. I don't even know what are we gonna do with this background frame. Sure, why not? The last thing I want to talk to you about, I guess actually two things. The first thing, let's just quickly go over a couple frame properties, right? So active simply means like, can you click on it? This only works for stuff like buttons, right? So like if you have a button and you make it inactive, so you make active false, then clicking on the button will do nothing. Automatic size, yeah, background color, we have that. These don't really matter. Yeah, you can change the position, which also is a scale and offset, right? So position, again, use scale. Size, again, use scale as well. Visible is like whether you can see it or not. Z index, the higher this is, if let's say I were to add a button here, right? But then I want this button to be like behind the background frame, right? So I want the background frame to be on top of the text button. Then I just make the Z index of the background frame higher. There we go. So as long as the Z index is higher than the text buttons, then it's going to be drawn on top, right? But then if the text buttons is higher, so right now ours is 2. If I make this 3, then it's going to be higher. If I make this 4, then it's going to be higher. So the highest number is going to be seen, right? Basically. No, yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, so the one thing I want to show you is how to add stuff inside a frame. So you can hit plus, we can add, let's say, a text box, right? And then by default, the text box size will use offset. So the way you can quickly change it to scale is you can just click here, and so like the scale will always be the first number of the x and the first number of the y, right? So as you can see, we have 0 and 0. But then instead of 0, 0 and then 250, we want something like, 0.1 comma 0 comma 0.1 comma 0. So by saying 0, we like change the offset to be 0, and then we're changing the scale to be 0.1 on each axis, and then from there we can like scale it to be however big we want, right? So I'll just do 0.1 comma 0 comma 0.1 comma 0. There we go. So now it's scaling. Yeah, there we go. Let's move it over here. Yeah, there we go. So we can have a thing here. That's just a text button. And because it's scaled, which is so amazing, it's actually not scaled to the screen, it's scaled to its parent, which is the background frame. So like if I were to change the size to be like 1010, it wouldn't cover the entire screen, it would just cover, okay, well, because like the position is off. If I set the position to full, like 0000, as you can see, it only covers the full background frame, not the actual full screen. The screen GUI covers the full screen. That's why the background frame, when we set the scale to 1010, that's why it covers the full screen, but text box doesn't, right? So I'll just undo that, just move it back to where it was. Yeah, and the best part about this as well is that if the text box is scaled too, then if I were to move the background frame or resize it, the text box would resize with it. So anything that's inside the frame, as long as it's scaled, will move along with it, right? Which is actually very cool. Now, it's also worth it for you to know that GUI tends to be split into like 3 sections, right? So the first section is the GUIs, right? So these are the Add GUI, Billboard GUI, Screen GUI, which is what we're using, and Surface GUI. This is typically the containers that actually show us the GUI, right? Now I'll get to, all of these in, a future series, I don't know, whatever. But so yeah, those are the GUIs, and inside of these GUIs, you would place GUI objects, which would be frames, text buttons, text labels, local script, image, text box, image button, and there's other stuff too, like a text box, which is what we have right now, scrolling frame, canvas group, I don't even know what that is, viewport frame, video frame, so on and so on, right? And the third category are the UI modifiers, which are these things, right? So, UI corner, UI gradient, all of these stuff. Yeah, all of these. So the UI stroke, size constraint, scale, page layout. These are the things that actually go inside of the UI elements, right? So we have the GUIs, we have the UI objects or elements, and we have the UI modifiers, right? So just kind of try and keep that in mind. And you can put modifiers inside modifiers. So I can put a gradient inside a stroke, right? Yeah, so the next thing I want to talk about is the actual text box and how can we modify that, right? Now, some GUI will sometimes have these weird gimmicks, these weird like little inconsistencies, right? So if I take this corner and I place it inside of the text box, like I paste it in, right? It works, right? Wonderful, amazing. But if I take the stroke and I place it inside the text box, right? Okay, yeah, yeah, we need to change it to border, right? But yeah, awesome, that all works. However, if I take the gradient and I place it inside the text box, it doesn't work. Just enabled, disabled. The color it's white, so it should work. I typed in some text in here, by the way. You can type text. It's pretty nice. Yeah, but as you can see, like the gradient for some reason doesn't work. And I'm not too sure why, right? However, the thing that's great, the Roblox GUI just has everything that you need to basically make anything that you need, right? So if I really wanted a text box, but I really wanted it to have like an actual gradient, but it's not working, what I could do is I could take this text box, right? I could set the text color to be like white, right? Like full white, which we can't see it right now because of the background. I can make it scaled. I can, I don't know what for Doka 1, sure. Everyone uses that, right? Like every simulator game. I'm going to set the background transparency to be 0. Beautiful, so we see this. And then what I can do is I'll remove the gradient. I'm going to make another frame and I'm going to basically make it the same size as this text box, right? So I'm going to make another frame like this, and then I'm going to just copy the position and scale of the text box. So I'll say, okay, position is going to be this for the frame, like so. And then the scale, or the size, is going to be this for the frame, like so. Beautiful. And then I'll just take the gradients and I'll add it inside the frame. Oh, right, yeah, because it has a number sequence. So I'll set the transparency to 0 for now. And as you can see, the text box is behind the frame. And remember, the way we fix that is we go to the Z index of the text box and we just make it something high, like let me find it, like 2, yeah. There we go, beautiful. So now this is showing. It's kind of hard to see the text like this, so I'll probably again make it a little darker. Sure, like that. Why not? Yeah, there we go. And then I'll just add a UI corner to the frame, and I'm gonna rename it to text box background, like so. There we go. So we've kind of fixed the issue that our text box could not have a gradient, right? And now we can type stuff in here. So I can no, like that. Awesome. Now you may have also noticed, and we're getting to an end here, but you may have also noticed that the text is kind of weird in the sense that like it's too close to the borders, right? What if we wanted to add some sort of like padding, right? What if we wanted to be like a certain space away from these sides? And we actually can do that. So what I'll do is I'll actually change the text to be like hello world, something like that. See, it's too close. It kind of doesn't really fit well. We can add in a padding, right? And a padding has a padding bottom. So the space from the bottom, like, and the text has to respect this space. So this space must be maintained. And we have a space left, space right, and a space top, or they call it padding, right? And we have scale and offset. Once again, we want to use scale, right? So I tend to use 0.01 for all of them. So if I just close all of these, like so, I tend to just take this and I just copy it all over to all of them. Which here doesn't seem to be working that well, so I'll just do 0.05. Let's try 0.05. There we go. Instantly we can see the difference, right? So if we, if I copy this padding and delete it, it looks like that. If I undo what I just deleted, it looks like that. And then, if I keep typing, as you can see, it respects this distance, right? Which is really, really, really nice. Yeah. Hello. Smiley face. There we go. I guess something we could do is place the text box inside of the background. Actually, we could do that, but now it's small. And remember, if we want to scale it to be fully, inside of the text box background, what do? We use the size and we just say 1010. I'll just take the position and I'll just, oh, right. Okay. We have to set it to 0. There we go. Because it's parented to the text box now, then setting it to 0, 0, 0, 0 will set it to the center of like the text box background and not the frame. It's a little confusing, right? I get the numbers are all wacky and everything, but because it's now parented to the text box background, then setting it to 0, 0, 0, 0 will set it directly in the middle of the text box background. If I were to set it to the middle of the background frame, then as you can see, it's in the middle of the background frame and it's scaled to the size of the background frame. But yeah, we want it to be here. And I placed it inside the text box background just to make it a little more, compact, convenient. And yeah, that's actually pretty much all there is for today. So yeah, if you, log in right now, beautiful. So you have this and you can type stuff in here. Amazing. So we have our own little GUI, which is a little transparent in the middle, which is pretty nice. And yeah, and another thing I want to show you is it's inside our player GUI. So screen GUI, there we go. So how StarterGui works is that when you actually add GUI inside of it, whenever a player joins, it takes this GUI and it places it inside of the player. So this is very important, right? If you ever are scripting the GUI, you want to make this frame invisible for some reason, right? Like all of this invisible. What some people do is inside of the script, they go to, okay, game.starterGui and then .screenGui.visible equals false. You know what this does? Let me show you. Or actually, no, for screen GUI, it's called enabled, I think. Yeah. So enabled just means like, if it's true, we can see it. If it's false, we cannot see it. But I can still see it. Do you know why? Because what we're seeing here is the thing that's in our player GUI, not the thing that's in starter GUI. Starter GUI simply, whenever a player joins, they just take this, they copy it, they clone it, they give it to the player, and they're like, okay, done, right? So changing this will not do anything to any players who have the existing copy. If you want to change the player's GUI, you have to go to player.player GUI, and then you get the screen GUI, and that's when it has an effect, like so. But the smarter way of doing this would actually be to place a script inside of the GUI and then use like script.parent, because then script.parent, you don't have to go to like, oh, player.player GUI, because because the script is going to be cloned over here as well, right? So when you say script.parent, it actually affects it over here, right? So again, that's for the next episode. Next episode, I'll show you how to script all of this stuff. We're gonna slightly polish this, actually give it a meaning, because right now it doesn't do much. We're gonna add something like a toggle button. Probably gonna make this do something like maybe actually a cool thing is if we type a part and we hit enter, it like spawns a part on top of us. That actually would be pretty fun. So yeah, I'm gonna stop this. If you want to continue, with this like series and everything, what I recommend you do is to go to File and then publish this game to Roblox so you have it saved. And then you should see something like this. Actually, no, my screen is different because I already published the game. But yeah, publish the game. It's gonna prompt you to save, to give it a name. Give it a name. Just hit save. Don't bother with all the other stuff. And then that game will be saved to Roblox servers, which you're then able to open from anywhere, right? But yeah, so thanks for watching. Go to the comments. I have a thing there where like you can give me your personal, secure, sensitive information, and by that I mean your email. and then like I have like a newsletter which you can sign up to, where I'll show you cool stuff. I'll send you like helpful information, and every now and then I will sell you one of my $10,000 courses. So make sure to stay tuned for that. So stay tuned for episode 2 of I don't even know, ByteBlock's GUI series, whatever. And thanks for watching.